Was Adrian the problem Broner right? Was Keith Thurman really gambling in the MGM before the Pacquiao fight? What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Now, let's jump into it. I made a video about it. Broner, he said I'll fuck around and fight Keith Thurman next. You know, that's what he said. So he said he was down for that work. A little bit confusing because he said he's dropping back down to 140. Keith Thurman, clearly a guy who fights at 147. No longer a champion, though. No longer undefeated. But Keith Thurman has fought as high as like 152, 153 when he stopped Carlos Quintana. Now, one thing Broner said post-fight after the Pacquiao fight is basically he deserves props because he didn't look like Keith Thurman looked. His face wasn't all busted up. And he said Keith Thurman got cooked. And then days later, he calls out Keith Thurman for a fight. But another thing he said was that Keith Thurman was actually gambling. He was gambling, and there's a reason he lost. Like, you know, basically it sounded like kind of like a discipline issue. And that's interesting coming from Broner, because some people think Broner has had discipline issues or parties and stuff like that. So if Broner is bringing that up, it's one thing. But as you guys see in the thumbnail, there's a picture that just surfaced of Keith Thurman, and it looks like he is gambling, you know. So a lot of people are like, what's up with that? You know, why would Keith Thurman, is he really in it for boxing? Like, why would you be gambling on the MGM casino floor the week of your fight? You're the biggest fight of your career, the fight that's gonna make or break you, you know, in terms of being a superstar right now, those types of things. So I don't know. My thoughts, I don't have too many thoughts because I don't like to overly judge people. If he felt, you know, he had done everything in training camp and was ready to gamble, then I guess that's his business. Some people would say he should just laser focus and stay in the room and just make weight and stuff. I guess at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. It just depends on who you are as a fighter. Some people have different ways to cut weight. Some people have different ways to train, you know. But Keith Thurman, he said last fight with Jose Cito, he said he trained at like LA Fitness, which was weird, you know, because it's not like he had a new team. He had the same team. So I don't know exactly what created that. And I don't really know where Keith Thurman's head is. But I will say this, based on his performance, I don't think he did bad considering he was in there with the legend. I thought he did solid. He didn't, it just depends on how you're judging it. I think he did good, you know, but he did good late and he didn't win the fight. And he didn't do good if we're going off of what he said pre-fight about Manny Pacquiao, you know, has these T-Rex arms and I'm gonna crucify him and retire him and send him back to the Senate. Like, if we're judging off of those standards, then obviously he didn't do those things to Pacquiao. Pacquiao's face looked fairly clean, but I do think he hurt Pacquiao. He got Pacquiao's respect. Pacquiao gave him a lot of praise post-fight, said he's a good fighter. He's a strong guy. I was just a better man. But I think people should people got to be respectful in this boxing game. Definitely got to be respectful, because Keith Thurman, I personally had questions like, how dedicated is he to the sport? Ever since he got domesticated, got married and stuff, he seems to be almost a watered down Keith Thurman in terms of the hunger. But what he went through in the Pacquiao fight, he has fights in him, you know. I can't question his hunger off of that, because that body shot that he got hit with in the 10th or whatever, that would have put somebody down, especially if you had already got knocked down earlier, your face was cut and bleeding. And, you know, there was one of the rounds where he walked back to his corner and he was leaking. His nose was all busted. And I was like, man, that's looking ugly for Keith. So I think this kind of put to bed those types of feelings, at least that I had. I can't speak for everybody, because I don't think the way he performed, I don't think he was in there just not trying to win. He was competitive, and he actually did better late, and Pacquiao slowed down. So I think he did himself favors even in the loss. Like if he would have went in there and Pacquiao would have and done all this shit, and then he just kind of shelled up, then that wouldn't have been a good performance. But this was no Josh Clottey performance. I think he took more risks than Adrian Broner as well. He was trying to let his hands go. He was hitting Pacquiao with some strong ass rights, some solid rights, and I know Pacquiao felt it because there were points later in the fight where Pacquiao started banging his head and hitting his head because he was like angry that he got caught and shit, you know. So I think all in all, Keith Thurman, this wasn't a bad loss for him. It's a loss. He lost his belt, but he answered some questions, at least for me. Now, what does this mean in the grand scheme of the division? I don't know, because to me, I've told you guys for the longest, and nothing has changed from this fight, even with Pacquiao winning. I think Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence is really their time. I think they're the 1A and the 1B of the division. You know, Keith Thurman versus Pacquiao was a great, excellent fight, but I do think that the guys to beat in the division are Spence and Crawford. They just bring a different level of competitiveness, energy, power, smarts, boxing ability. Leonard Ellaby said it himself. He said, I wouldn't put Pacquiao in there with Spence. I think that's a totally different fight to the Keith Thurman fight. And I know some people will say, oh, but, you know, a lot of people thought Keith Thurman would beat Pacquiao. Me personally, if you follow my channel, I kept telling you, and I never wavered from this. I never changed it. I kept saying, I'm picking Pacquiao. I don't trust Keith Thurman's intentions. He's a good fighter, but I got to go with the experience and the legend. And I never left that talking point. And as you guys see, who won? You know, I never really put, if this was 2-3 years ago, I would have probably picked Keith Thurman. But just the current scope of it, I was leaning towards Pacquiao. And I told you I was picking Pacquiao to win. And that's what happened. But shout out to Keith Thurman. I think he had a solid performance. He really did. And, you know, the gambling thing, you guys let me know what you guys think. Is that something fighters should do? Should they just be like hyper focused in their rooms, in their suites and shit, and then just waiting for the fight? What are your thoughts on that? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Make sure you smash the like button. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.